When we speak about history, usually we use the word history and we feel detached. I want to touch a certain point in history where I do not feel detached at all. I feel I'm the very midst of the creation of a new chapter in the history of Zionism. It was exactly 40 years ago, and this specific coin commemorates 40th anniversary of the Jewish return to the mountains of Shomron, to the mountains of Samaria. We can see here Rabbi Levinger and Hanan Porat, Rabbi Hanan Porat, celebrating on the shoulders of a young people who were part of this page of history, part of this turning point of history, when the return of Jews to Samaria became a fact. Thank God, and I thank God every day for being a part of this very special day when we were dancing in the heart of the mountains of Shomron, celebrating this special moment of return of Jews to the heart of our heartland, to the center, to the very heart of the homeland of the Jewish nation. At that time, I'm saying 40 years ago, I used to live in near Tel Aviv, in Ramat Gan, was already mother of 2 little girls, and I was part of the awakening of the Jewish nation and part of forming the new movement that is called Gush Emunim. Today I'm involved in the Halav movement, which actually continues the work of settling the land, a work that was started by Gush Emunim and is continuing today by the Nachala activists. Okay. So we came to Shomron, to Samaria, in Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a Chag, a holiday of miracles, of bravery, Gvura, of Maccabees, of light. And we came to the dark mountains of Shomron. We were actually marching from Netanya all the night to the heart of the mountains of Shomron. It was a long march. There was a very important person marching with us. There were also some members of Knesset, but I want to emphasize the fact that the famous poet Naomi Shemer wrote a poem. It's called Ish Muzar, Strange Man, about, I believe she wrote it about Rabbi Levinger, who was considered in many senses strange because he was speaking always about such high vision. And then this poet was marching with us, and then she wrote the poem saying, I was marching and then to Shomron, and then people came from the mountains in the dark, in the rain, tens and hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands. And they were using the old archaic slogan, Eretz Israel shayechet le'am Israel. The land of Israel belongs to Am Israel. So simple, so naive, so much not sophisticated. At the end of the poem she says, I wish to be part of you. This is a very symbolic, very poetic, very prophetic. This was the vision, and it became a reality. We were marching the whole night. It was raining. You know, when it comes to a point that you don't say anymore, I get wet. I was all water like all the others, with backpacks on our backs, and everything was wet. And then we reached an old railway station from the time of the Ottoman Empire. Most of the buildings did not have any roof on it, but that was the center, that was what we were heading to. And there we were standing, and I met there Rabbanit Levinger, the wife of Rabbi Levinger. She was there. brave woman. And she was standing there with an umbrella near the building. She wouldn't go in because, it wasn't nice to get smashed with all the youngsters who were inside there. And people were coming from the mountains more and more in the middle of the night. And something was, speaking of history and of historical moments, I was so happy that I was part of it. You have to imagine that I came from this big city and then I came to the mountains. I was already part of the Gush Emunim movement as far as ideas and activities were concerned. We were beginning to form those groups, those nuclei of youngsters who were aiming at settling Beit El to be, Shiloh to be. I'm not speaking about the biblical, but what was the biblical and will be the modern communities. And morning, rain stopped, sun shone, and many people were there on the hills and everywhere, and more were coming. There were army barriers, but people found the way through the mountains to join the camp of the settlers. It was called already Machaneh the Mitnachalim, of the settlers. I like this word because it has to do with the word Nachala, my movement today, which means settling the land. It was becoming like thick with many people coming and coming and coming. There was also soldiers, but and we got word, well, television wasn't so, I'm speaking about 40 years ago, and the media people were coming back and forth, and the word was that the government of Israel, Rabin was prime minister, Shimon Peres was minister of defense, the government was debating whether yes or no it was possible to force the settlers to leave the place, whether it was realistic at all. And what we read later in articles and reports in the papers, the government was very much hesitant about forcing so many thousands of Jews to leave the heart of the land. And then, after 2 days, I think, we heard that Shimon Peres, Minister of Defense, was coming to visit the settlers. We were, in the meantime, we had our kindergarten and our school, and we started planting trees and feeling very much at home in Shomron. Then we saw the helicopter. We knew it was Shimon Peres, minister. He landed not far from the camp of the settlers in Sebastia. We saw him coming, accompanied by officers and by other people. And then he went into a tiny room that was, and the entrance, there wasn't a normal door, but just a blanket hanging there with 2 nails. So I saw Shimon Peres entering that room, and then Rabbi Levinger and Rabbi Hanan Porat and Benny Katzover and Menachem Felix and some other people from Gush Emunim and from Garin Elon Moreh, from the Elon Moreh group. And there was silence, expectation, fear and hope, happiness and hard feeling, because we thought maybe he said that we should leave the place, and there were already many people, and we were receiving public support. And then, all of a sudden, we saw the Rabbi Levinger moving the blanket and going outside and saying, Likroa, Likroa, like tear your clothes, because we heard a word from Minister Peres saying that we have to leave the place. It's like ruining an existing settlement in Eretz Israel. So, at that spot, and I'm speaking to you in historical terms, I saw rabbis and many people with beards, and people young and old, sat on the ground, sat on the mud, sat like this with the clothes, and I saw the rabbis weeping, really, literally lamenting over this news that we had to leave the place. And I said to myself, well, do I really see these things? Am I a part of this chapter of history when Jews expressed the love for the land with such intensity that they literally cry, that old people sit there on the ground of the beloved ground of Eretz Israel and literally cry? And I was sort of frightened by the moment, like something like Mount Sinai, feeling that we read about every day, but mainly in Passover. So people were sitting there, and then Shimon Peres, accompanied by the officers, went to his helicopter, and there I saw the helicopter here in the sky, and then we all formed a huge circle and started singing Am Israel Chai, with so much devotion. It was a prayer, it wasn't just a song, maybe like the song of the Leviim in Bet HaMikdash. It lasted, I can say hours. It was a prayer. Then we were gathering. Rabbi Levinger was standing on one of the rocks over there and saying things that I will never forget, of course. He said, we didn't know yet what the government would decide. So he said, look here, when we come to Eretz Israel, we have to kill Melech Heshbon, the king of Heshbon, a city in the eastern part of Eretz Israel, east of the Jordan River. Heshbon means calculations also, arithmetic, the personal calculation of every human being and also every Jew. Does it pay to do it? Can it happen? Can it not happen? Will it be on the expense of something personal? Can I cope with it? Will anything real from it? And I was hearing this, and this was not like another chapter from the Bible for me. I'm now being recruited to a battle for Eretz Israel, and I have to kill all personal calculations. And then I was saying to myself naively, I'll work for Eretz Israel, I'll dedicate myself to Eretz Israel, but I don't have to give any personal sacrifice for this. Well, time proved that, has proven actually up till now, that you have not to kill king of Heshbon, king of personal calculations, every single day. And I have to cope with this ongoing decision, ongoing sacrifice every day of my life. But God has mercy on those who dedicate themselves to the Holy Land. So He gives me and my family, my dear family, and my dear friends. Then it was of Gush Emonim, and today of Nachala. God gives us the strength to cope with everyday difficulties. And so we came to the point when there was a meeting in Tel Aviv. I'm speaking about 40 years ago, and the heads of Elon Moreh group and the heads of Gush Emonim movement met with Shimon Peres, and there, with his own writing, he wrote the agreement of Sebastia, which enabled us to stay in Shomron. The government gave us 30 trailers, and in December 1975, 40 years ago, they said the last article there was the government of Israel will discuss within 2 to 3 weeks the future of Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria. So now we are 40 years after that, and there are 400,000 Jews in Judea and Samaria. And thank God we're growing, and we will grow even more. When the word came to us in Shomron that this agreement was signed, we started dancing again. And ever since then, we are working hard, very hard, for the ongoing building of more and more communities in Yehuda and Shomron. There is a word that I want to say to Jews all over the world, to world Jewry. When 40 years ago we were trying to begin Jewish first community in Shomron, in Samaria, there was a beginning of support of the public in Israel for the great idea of resettling of Shomron. It might sound strange now, but it was beginning the support was beginning to shape up. We as a group of Gush Emunim movement tried 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times to settle Shomron with no success. We were taken by force every time. Only the 8th time on Hanukkah 40 years ago, December 1975, it was in the middle of the year 1975. I remember it very, very well. It was the decision of the UN that compared Zionism to racism. That aroused a wave of Jewish solidarity. The relevant aspect of this awakening was that there was a delegation of Jewish organizations from North America and from England, a delegation that came to Israel. Heads of of Jewish organizations came to express solidarity with the Jewish nation that is living in Zion, in Eretz Israel, and actually the center of Zionism in modern time, of course, is the land of is the state of Israel. But the interesting thing, and it's not a supposition, and it's not a vision, and it's not a thought, it's not a philosophy, it's a fact. We, people of Gush Emunim movement, people of the Garin Elon Moreh that wanted to create the first Jewish settlement in Shomron, were in the dark mountains of Shomron in December 75. Now, the decision of the delegations of Jewish organizations from all over the Western world to come and to visit us in the heart of Shomron when there was no Jewish settlement, and the way we looked at that time in the midst of the winter with our muddy clothes and like there without any electricity, without any normal signs of modern life, their visit there, us, the Jewish delegations and the people with the elegant suits and with the elegant ties visiting us that we looked like, wild creatures in the mountains, that made a historic difference because Rabin, Prime Minister then, and Shimon Peres, Minister of Defense, with all their doubts and with all their hesitations, what would the world say, what will be if we let first Jewish settlement be established in Shomron, they couldn't take us by force from the mountain when there were representatives from the Jewish world, from Jewish organizations visiting us. So that gave us a few more days. And that made our presence in Shomron a reality. And that enabled the government, or forced the government, to let us stay a little more. And we stay till today. Rabin at the time, 40 years ago, said in Yeshivat Memshala, in the meeting of the government, let them, he got tired of all the pressures concerning our presence there. So finally he said, let them stay there, they will go by themselves. Why bother the government with yes to let them stay or not? So I want to thank the Jews from the world that helped us 40 years ago, and I want to address Jews from the world to continue the support, because we still need this support, because now we are strong. So the world tries to pull us out of our homeland because we are going to put an end to any attempt to draw Jews from the heart homeland, and the efforts now with the boycott and everything are strong. So versus it, we have to have the strength of Jews in Israel, but also of Jews the world over.